Okay, have you ever seen, like, your ex move on, like, crazy fast?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're still kind of like, what just happened?
It's so common.
It's like, it's so confusing. It can even be, like, hurtful.
Yeah.
And it leaves you with a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to deep dive into that today.
Okay.
And I think it's something that, like, we've all experienced
Oh, absolutely.
at some point. So, no judgment here. But let's really try to understand, like, why?
Why?
The why behind this whole thing. And trust me, you might be surprised by what we uncover.
Definitely some surprising motivations.
Yes, it's not always what it looks like on the surface.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I think one of the most important things to remember is that everybody processes breakups differently.
Totally.
At their own pace.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong timeline. And comparing yourself to your ex
Oh, yeah.
is a recipe for frustration.
You're telling me it's so easy to fall into that trap, especially when you're like,
Yeah.
bombarded with pictures of them, like, so happy
Yeah.
with their new person.
Like, are they trying to send me a message?
Right.
And sometimes they are.
Really?
Yeah, this is where the look at me now phenomenon.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
What is that?
So imagine you're the one who got dumped, right?
Okay.
You're feeling hurt, projected,
Yeah.
maybe a little lost, but your ex might be using this new relationship as a way to project an image of strength, resilience to you and the world.
So it's not necessarily about genuine connection for them.
Sometimes not.
It's more about making a statement.
Yeah, remating control,
Okay.
masking that vulnerability, and essentially saying like, hey, look, I'm fine, I've already moved on.
Right, right.
But in reality, they could be struggling just as much as you are, just in a different way.
Wow. So they're trying to convince themselves as much as they're trying to convince everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look how good I'm doing.
Totally.
But how can you tell if that's actually what's happening?
Well, if the new relationship is very public, very performative, especially
Yeah.
on social media,
Yeah.
that can be a red flag. They might be oversharing details about the new partner, posting photos constantly, or even engaging in, subtle or not so subtle digs at you.
Ouch. So, like, what's the best way to deal with that if you see that happening?
Honestly, limit your exposure. Unfollow them on social media, avoid places where you might run into them, and just focus on your own space for healing.
Okay.
So it's not about, like, being petty or ignoring their existence. It's about protecting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Your own well-being.
Exactly.
It makes sense. So we talked about the whole look at me now phenomenon.
Right.
What are some other reasons why exes seem to move on so quickly?
Well, another big factor is attachment style.
Oh, yeah. Attachment
Yeah,
styles.
yeah.
I've been hearing a lot about those. Can you, like, break that down for us a little bit?
Yeah. So attachment theory describes how we form bonds in relationships,
Okay.
going all the way back to childhood. And those patterns can definitely influence how we react to breakups. So, for example, somebody with an anxious attachment style
Yeah.
might jump into a new relationship very quickly, just
Right.
to avoid feeling alone and abandoned.
Like to fill that void, even if the new relationship isn't really, like,
Exactly.
healthy or good for them.
They're not even consciously aware of it, but they're just driven by this deep fear
Oh, wow.
of being alone.
That's interesting.
And then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got avoidant attachment styles.
Okay.
They might look like they've moved on really easily, but really they're just suppressing their emotions.
Oh, so it's almost like they're just really good at compartmentalizing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. But I can't imagine that's healthy in the long run.
No, those unprocessed emotions can resurface and create problems later on.
Okay.
They might struggle with intimacy, have a hard time committing,
Right.
or even sabotage relationships
Right.
before they get too close.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
This is making me wonder about my own attachment style. Is
Yeah.
there a way to, like, figure that out?
There are quizzes and assessments online, but even just reflecting
Okay.
on your past relationships can give you some clues.
Okay.
How do you typically react to conflict? How do you handle separation?
Yeah.
And what are your biggest fears in relationships?
That's really helpful. So understanding your attachment style can really
Oh.
be, like,
Oh, yeah.
a game changer when it comes to navigating relationships with yourself and others.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about attachment styles.
Yes.
What else?
Here's another factor that might make it look like an ex has moved on quickly.
Okay.
Pre-breakup grieving.
Pre-breakup grieving. I've never heard of that one before.
Okay, think about it this way. The person who initiated the breakup has probably been thinking about it for a while, right? Weeks, months, even longer. They've already gone through the stages of grief in their own mind, weighed the pros and cons, and come to terms with the decision.
So by the time they actually break up with you, they've already processed it.
They've had a head start
Oh, wow.
on the healing process. So while you're still like dealing with the shock,
Yeah.
they might already be further along in their journey.
Oh, so it's not that they didn't care, it's just that they've already been dealing with it.
Yeah, it's like, they've been running a marathon and you're just starting the race.
Yeah.
It's not a fair comparison.
Right.
And it doesn't diminish the pain you're feeling.
Yeah. No, it's just helpful to understand, like, everyone's on their own timeline.
Exactly.
You don't need to compare or judge.
Right. Focus on your own healing journey. Don't
Yeah.
worry about what they're doing.
Okay. So we talked about attachment styles and pre-breakup grieving.
Mm-hmm.
What about those classic, like, rebound relationships?
Oh, rebounds.
Are those ever a good idea?
They can be tricky.
Okay.
They're tempting because they offer like a quick fix
Yeah.
for the pain and loneliness.
Totally.
But they often backfire in the long run.
So it's more about distraction
Often,
than
yeah.
actual connection?
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Oh, okay.
It might temporarily cover it up, but it doesn't address the underlying issue.
And I imagine all of those, like, unresolved emotions eventually come up
Oh, absolutely.
in that new relationship.
If you haven't taken the time to process the previous relationship,
Yeah?
you just carry those same patterns
Right.
and
So
security.
it's like you're building on, like, a shaky foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then there's the risk of, like, hurting the new person, too.
Oh, yeah. They might be genuinely interested in you,
Yeah.
but you're not fully present.
You're not really there.
You're not emotionally available.
So how do you know when you're, like, really ready for a new relationship?
Yeah.
Or if you're just looking for a rebound?
That is a great question, and it's something that we'll explore more deeply in the next part of our deep dive. But here's a little preview.
Okay.
Pay attention to your motivations.
Yeah.
Are you seeking validation, distraction,
Mhm.
or are you genuinely open to connection?
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Be honest with yourself
Absolutely.
about why you're getting into this new relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so important.
Self-awareness is
Yeah.
crucial
Yeah, so important.
for creating healthy and fulfilling relationships in the future.
Absolutely. Well, this has been really insightful.
So you want to know how to figure out if you're ready for a new relationship or just looking for a rebound?
Yeah, like, how do you actually know?
Well, one of the best ways to set yourself up for success in your next relationship is to really reflect on your past ones.
Okay.
Like, what can you learn from those?
Yeah, I've heard that before,
Yeah.
but how do you actually do that? It all seems kind of vague.
Yeah, it's all about recognizing patterns. Like,
Okay.
think about the people you've dated in the past.
Yeah.
Were there any common threads in terms of their personality, their behavior, or even just the way the relationships ended?
Now that you mention it,
Yeah.
I think I do have a type.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't end well, we often gravitate towards those familiar patterns, even if they're not healthy for us.
It's like we're subconsciously trying to recreate the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, those dynamics that we grew up with or experienced in our early relationships.
So how do you break free from that? It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Well, awareness is the first step, right?
Yeah.
Once you recognize those recurring themes,
Yeah.
you can start to kind of dig a little deeper.
Okay.
And ask yourself, what needs were you trying to meet in those relationships? Were you seeking validation, security, excitement?
I think I was always looking for, like, a sense of completion, like someone to make me feel whole.
Mm-hmm. It's a very common longing. But the truth is, wholeness comes from within.
Yeah.
We can't really rely on another person to, fill those voids in ourselves.
So I was looking for someone to fix me
In a way.
instead of doing the work myself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's where self-awareness and personal growth come in. It's about recognizing those patterns and then making a conscious effort to choose differently.
But how do you actually, make those changes?
Yeah, that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Therapy can be incredibly helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Having a therapist can give you that safe space
Yeah.
to explore those deeper issues,
Okay.
develop heavier coping mechanisms.
Like having a coach
Totally.
in your corner.
Yeah. But even if therapy's not an option right now, there are still things you can do on your own, like journaling, meditation, mindfulness practices. Those can all help you become more aware of your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors.
So it's like really taking, ownership of your own
Yes.
healing journey
Absolutely.
and not being afraid to ask for support.
Yeah. Another crucial part of this process is learning to forgive.
I forget my ass.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for that.
I understand. It's a process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't mean condoning or excusing their behavior.
Okay.
It's really about releasing the anger and resentment that you're holding on to.
So it's more about, letting go for your own good.
Exactly. Holding on to that anger and resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Oh,
It only hurts you in the end.
wow. That's a good analogy.
It's about freeing yourself from the past so that you can move forward with like a lighter heart.
Yeah.
And sometimes forgiveness needs to be directed inward as well.
Oh, what do you mean?
We can be so hard on ourselves after a breakup. We
Yeah.
blame ourselves for the things we did or didn't do.
Yeah.
Replay those mistakes over and over in our minds.
Oh, yeah. I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah.
That self-criticism can be brutal.
It's important to remember that, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
We're all learning and growing. Nobody is perfect. Self-forgiveness is about offering ourselves compassion and understanding, just as we would offer it to a close friend.
You know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
Gratitude.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it sounds kind of strange, like gratitude after a breakup,
Yeah.
but I found that like focusing on the good things,
hmm
even in the midst of heartbreak, can really help shift your perspective.
I love that. Gratitude is so powerful.
Yeah.
Even in those really tough times, like
Mhm.
it's about finding the silver linings, the lessons learned,
Totally.
the unexpected gifts that came out of the experience.
It's like looking for those sparks of joy,
Yes.
even when you feel surrounded by darkness.
Yeah. And it's not about denying the pain or pretending everything's okay. It's about holding space for both
Okay.
the sadness and the gratitude.
Yeah.
Recognizing that even difficult experiences can,
Yeah.
teach us valuable lessons and help us grow.
So instead of dwelling on what you lost, you can focus on what you gained from the relationship.
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe the relationship helped you discover your strength, your resilience, or your capacity for love.
Mhm.
Maybe it taught you valuable lessons about boundaries, communication, or what you truly value in a partner.
So it's like you're reframing the narrative
Yeah.
of the breakup and realizing it could actually be like
It can be a catalyst for transformation.
exactly.
Gratitude helps us shift out of that victim mentality and step into a place of empowerment.
Okay.
It lets us see the breakup not as a setback,
Yeah.
but as an opportunity for learning and growth.
It's so easy to get caught up in that, like
Totally.
me
Totally.
mentality, but gratitude helps you find meaning,
Yeah, yeah.
even in the most painful experiences.
Absolutely. And speaking of meaning and purpose,
Okay.
one of the best things you can do after a breakup is to reconnect with your own passions and interests.
Yes, it's so easy to lose yourself in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
put your own needs and desires on hold.
Yeah.
So yeah, a breakup could be a chance to like rediscover who you are and what lights you up.
What activities bring you joy? What have you always wanted to try but haven't had the time? This is your chance.
It's your chance to explore all those possibilities.
Yeah,
Create a life that you actually love.
totally.
It's so empowering.
Right. And as you do that, you'll start to attract people who resonate with your energy, people who appreciate you for who you truly are.
I love that. This whole conversation is making me realize that, like, a breakup, while painful,
Mm-hmm.
it's also an incredible opportunity for growth.
Yeah. It's a chance to shed those old patterns, step into our power, and create a future filled with love, joy, and authentic connection.
I love that, and I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah,
So we talked about understanding your own patterns,
right.
forgiving yourself and your finding gratitude,
Yes.
even in the midst of, like, all the heartbreak.
Yeah.
It all sounds like really solid advice.
It's all part of the healing process.
Yeah.
But I know what you're really wondering.
What? What am I wondering?
How do you know when you've actually moved on?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
When are you ready for something new?
That's the million-dollar question. There's no, like, magic formula or anything.
Right.
But I bet you have some insights.
Well, I think one of the biggest signs is when you can think about your ex without heaping like a surge of intense emotions.
Okay.
You're not consumed by what they're doing, who they're with, or whether they're happier now.
So it's like they're not taking up space
Yeah.
in your mind anymore.
Exactly. You're no longer defining your worth based on their actions or opinions.
Okay.
You've accepted that the relationship is over and you're ready to write a new chapter.
What about, like, all those lingering, like, what ifs and should haves? Like, how do you deal with that?
Those are totally normal, especially early on.
Yeah.
But over time, they should become less frequent,
Okay.
less intense. If you're finding yourself constantly ruminating on the past,
Yeah.
it might be a sign that you still have some unresolved issues.
So you really got to be honest with yourself
Yeah.
about where you're at emotionally
Yeah.
before you jump into something new.
If those thoughts are still causing a lot of pain, maybe it's not the right time.
Okay, so let's say you're at a point where you're like, okay, I've genuinely moved on.
Yeah.
What are some things you can do to make sure your next relationship is, like, healthy and fulfilling?
Okay, first and foremost, be mindful of your patterns.
Right, right.
We talked about those earlier. Pay attention to the types of people you're drawn to, the roles you tend to fall into, the red flags you might be ignoring.
So basically, don't just jump back into the same dating pool and expect different results.
Right. This time around, approach dating with intention.
Okay.
What are your non-negotiables in a partner? What values, what qualities are truly important to you?
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask those tough questions early on, even if it feels a little awkward.
It's better to have those conversations up front than to find out like months later you're not on the same page.
Exactly. And then once you're in a relationship, communication is key.
Yes, communication is so important.
Open, honest, respectful communication.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of any strong partnership.
It's about being able to, like, express your needs and your feelings without fear of judgment, and, like, being able to listen to your partner's perspective
Yes.
with empathy.
It's about creating that safe space where both of you can be vulnerable and authentic.
And remembering that, like, disagreements are going to happen.
Oh, of course.
It's not about avoiding conflict, but it's how you handle it.
Exactly.
That matters.
Healthy couples know how to fight fair.
Yeah.
They listen to each other, compromise when necessary, and find solutions that work for both of them.
It sounds like creating a healthy relationship takes work,
It does.
but it's so worth it.
It is, and the work starts with you. Taking care of your own well-being, understanding your patterns, setting those clear boundaries, those are all essential for building strong and lasting connections.
This has been such a great conversation. I feel like we've covered so much ground today.
I agree. We have.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners feel empowered to understand their ex's behavior.
Yep.
But more importantly, to prioritize their own healing and growth.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought. Instead of focusing on why your ex moved on so quickly, ask yourself this: how can you use this experience as a catalyst for self-discovery and create even more fulfilling and meaningful connections in the future? Thanks for joining us today. And remember, heartbreak is a part of life, but it doesn't have to define you. You are strong, you are worthy, and you are capable of creating a future filled with love and happiness.